If you want to get free access to the world's combined information on Google at no cost, you would literally have to take a ship to the Library of Alexandria 2,000 years ago to get access to 0.1% of it, and now anyone can do it at no cost. You pay with a price.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Christopher Seilern. I'm the Senior Tech Analyst here at Pictet. And today in Pictet Meets, we're meeting Amir Orad, CEO of Sisense, a specialist in big data analytics. Amir is a serial entrepreneur. We're very lucky to have him with us today. He's led many companies, brought companies public, and he's got more than 20 years experience in all things cloud and analytics. Welcome, Amir. Thank you very much for taking the time to see us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I wanted to lead this by basically starting with the cloud. I mean, why is the cloud so important? I mean, after all, companies have been spending $2 trillion roughly every year on IT for quite some time. It moves up a little bit, and in the last 5 or 10 years, suddenly the cloud is a big thing. What is it, and how should we care? How should we be interested?
It's a great question. The reason it's so important is that up until this new way of doing things, for any company, from a very large company like Walmart to a tiny pizza shop down the corner, if they want to use technology, they have to buy a big machine, put it in the basement, then buy some software, stick it into that machine, operate it, change it every few years, and hope it works. That was more or less how it happens, which created an unfair advantage to the very large companies because they have big basements with many machines and many people that know how to operate them. And it resulted in a fast but relatively slow to today innovation, because when you want to change technology, you have to go physically to your basement, put in something new, hope it works, and so on and so on. The cloud is where Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and others provide you those machines in a central location with technology deployed on your behalf in that location, with other people operating that technology, which provides you much faster ability to deploy technology, actually shrinks the barrier, reduces the barrier between big and small companies, because now the pizza shop can get access to the same $1 trillion data center as Walmart can in that cloud. It allows much faster innovation because you can replace and update the technology all the time. And what it does is actually makes startups creation and new technology creation very, very easy, because you don't have to start from scratch. You stand on the shoulders of giants and you leverage all of the technology and investments done already in the cloud. Think about one thing: without the cloud, with COVID, without the cloud, how would our life look like? Because we would not have access to easy Zoom technology in the cloud. Everyone can just use it and it goes up and down as needed. I would not be able to do a doctor visit over the web when they have it. The doctor is at home, the server is in another location, the machinery they use is another. So many things we take for granted. We will not be able to sit home, watch Netflix, because we would not have the cloud. We'd need CDs and try and deliver CDs during the plague. Everything we take for granted, a lot of it would have not existed without the cloud technology.
And so obviously that brings along a lot of positives and a lot of new opportunities. I'm thinking specifically, I've heard you mention many times the quantity of data that we create right now is borderline obscene. Can you describe to us a bit how all of a sudden you're able to tap into all these data sources and extract and make sense of this data? Because after all, the legacy infrastructure is still there somehow. The data sits in a lot of the legacy infrastructure and a lot of different endpoints. How do you go about finding this stuff and then making sense of it?
Yeah, so their analytics and using data to make decisions is not new. Actually, in the Bible, you already have surveys of people. You find evidence of taxation with numbers and stats going back, 3,000 years, written on tablets. What is changing is the diverse set of sources you can now tap into, the access to sophisticated algorithms that look at the data, the amount of data you accumulate, and the ability to store it. The cloud is like a big repository of all human algorithms available versus the ones you have in your basement. Let's take the simplest example we all use as humans, photos. So I have this amazing device called the mobile phone. Some of you may have it, right? And this amazing device is capturing endless pictures, more than I ever thought I can take. To the point, there's more than I can put on my device. I don't know if you are using Amazon Photos or Google Photos, all of those services. I can literally run AI on my pictures, and I can Google pictures of my kids in a rainy day in New York, one point in time. And the cloud is accessing all its algorithms, visual recognition, pattern matching, using weather data and my data and so on, and gives me the best picture. That's obviously the simplest example. We can take it to the other extreme. Health data during COVID, the first genetic sampling of the virus was shared between endless scientists in the cloud electronically in the first day. It was sequenced, and each one separately in their own cloud repository started to work and share information, again cloud enabled, and access different algorithms available in the cloud, from very advanced AIs to others. So that's where data is becoming richer and algorithms become more accessible, and it's all becoming more diverse. And companies are taking advantage of it already. And I believe, and I'm betting my company on it, many more will, because if you don't take advantage of it, you'll be out of touch and lose your edge very, very quickly.
The example you brought about photographs is a very good one, because I've got thousands of photographs, tons of them in the cloud, and I have got no idea how to find them. Or if your example of using AI to find all the kids on a rainy day, that works. But sometimes if I don't know if it's my kids or my kids with their friends, and I realize that the sheer quantity is the obstacle. And oftentimes I'm starting to understand that understanding this data unstructured, how do you go about essentially what is a new paradigm here?
So the best way I suggest you think about it, the framework I would use, is you have raw data that is then translated into information. Information becomes insights, and insights become actions. So raw data, information, insights, and actions. I'll give an example, a real example that happens to all of us. We're not even aware. When you read an online book on your Kindle or phone, what have you, the raw information is how many seconds you spend on every page, right? So Chris spent 15 seconds on page 7. That's the raw data. The information coming out of it is statistics. Out of 10,000 people, 42% read the first chapter in 5 minutes, but 20% spent 3 weeks reading it. That's turned into insights. Chapter 5 is where your book is failing because only half the people continue, should rewrite your book. Books today are changing based on real feedback from the audience, versus in the past you write a book, you ship it, and maybe in 5 years you'll find out what people liked and write the next edition. And then people take actions. They'll change the book, market it differently, etc. And if you're a business person, think right now what raw data you sit on, because you probably sit on a gold mine untapped. You probably don't have as much information as you should get from it. You probably have even less insights, and you take very little actions. All of those are opportunities for improvement. All of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, if I think, we're a bank here, we have tons of information about some of the most, intimate things that happen in people's lives, and there's metadata around that. I mean, but that brings me on to an interesting point. It's about governance, because you mentioned the point. Chris takes 15 seconds to read a page on the Kindle. That's metadata about me that belongs, in theory, to Amazon, and that metadata has a life. And it may get used to construct a profile on me, which might get sold off to an advertiser and so forth. how should we think about governance on here?
It's a really interesting reality we're in. You and I assume, use a lot of online services that are very cheap all the way to free. We pay with our data. We pay with people knowing what we do. And it's a trade-off. If you want to get free access to the world's combined information on Google at no cost, you would literally have to take a ship to the Library of Alexandria 2,000 years ago to get access to 0.1% of it. And now anyone can do it at no cost. You pay with a price. There's a pattern of your activities and so on. And most people do that trade-off willingly. There's actually research. You do stop someone in this corner of a street and you ask them, I'll give you $5, will you tell me your birth date, where you live, your age, and so on. People do that knowingly. On the web, it's subconscious sometimes. People do it knowingly. But it is a trade-off. We have to be very clear about that reality. It is a trade-off. Anyone living in London, their picture is taken dozens of times every day as they walk the streets. You know everything about you. I can tell you your mood from the picture. There's actually now research that people can tell your sexual orientation with decent accuracy based on a picture of you. It's more intrusive and happening all the time around us. There are real benefits. There are real drawbacks. I told my kids, any picture you'll ever put online, every text in every app will be used one day against you potentially. The only good news, your entire generation is already screwed in a way, so you won't be any worse than your friend next door. That's the only advantage here.
Yeah, I have the same, pretty much the same advice to my kids, because they have, I feel a certain boundary as to how this goes. A lot of colleagues my age do. My children don't have any of those boundaries. Finally, I've got one last question. This is a sort of very broad one. How do you think companies should position themselves in an environment like this?
If you're a business and you don't think today how to take advantage of your data assets and turn them into competitive advantage and providing better service to your customers, leveraging the cloud, the internet, etc., you will wake up one moment and it will be too late. You build a business for 200 years, and you find one day that it doesn't exist. For the average company who is not investing in the cloud, it won't, it's good news. End of the day, they will move to the cloud. They will use data and analytics to make better decisions if they want to stay in business.